Let's jump right in. The guest tonight is a guy that I think everyone will probably get bored. He brings no energy. He's just really monotone. It probably reminds you of your old high school professor. I'm just joking, Billy. The guy tonight is Billy Corben, the exact opposite of what I just mentioned to you. I love his energy. It's infectious. You can feel his passion for what he does. Film producer, does everything, but I'll let him explain that. But his newest release is called Dawgfight, D-A-W-G. You can get it online at dawgfight.com. I'm pretty sure dog-fight.com. We'll link it up for you, Billy. But Billy, welcome. I really appreciate you coming on.
I feel like you just Googled me. I was almost certain you invited me on because you thought I was Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins.
No, Corbin.
Yeah, I thought that's what you. When I first got the invite, I'm like, he thinks I'm Corgan. He totally who has actually got the @Billy handle from Twitter, which is awesome, right?
I think I heard that from somebody. Yeah, how did he do that? Would he get in like in 1995 or what?
Right. I feel like he might be an investor or something. Yeah,
he's got to be. Him and Bono probably. I know Bono's invests in everything. It seems like. So we'll get into the Dawgfight. I recently watched it online for $5, which is awesome. That's like the future of the world. I love how you released it. I want to ask you about that in a little bit, but that's your newest one. I want to just let people know how I became aware of you was years ago. Anyone that knows me knows I can't stop talking about my favorite documentary of all time. You're probably sick of talking about this one, but the documentary Cocaine Cowboys by Billy it's unbelievable. It just opens your eyes up to a whole new world that you don't even know existed. It's how Miami was built, and how you put the thing together was crazy. Do you think that was the kind of the film you had that put you on the map, or put you, into the mainstream talk of kind of documentary filmmaking and just producing in general?
Well, no doubt. I mean, we had a doc before it called Raw Deal: A Question of Consent, which is.
I'm sorry. I need to interrupt you there, Bill.
Yeah.
So, I hate to interrupt, but I watched it. I had to go find it online somehow. I forget where I bought it from. It feels like it's kind of complicated to find it, and that was so disturbing. First off, I heard you talking about it on the Joe Rogan podcast, which I reference here all the time, and you were talking about it. I want to let you explain that, but first off, I think everybody should see it because it's pretty eye-opening. It's very disturbing, actually, and I feel like I'm not disturbed by many things. I've watched all kind of documentaries on horrible people and horrible things, and that is just can you explain a little bit, man? It was like back from 2001, I think, when you released it, and it's a scary deal.
Yeah, it was an incident that happened in spring of '99 at the University of Florida in Gainesville, and it was the alleged rape of a stripper at the Delta Chi fraternity house, and it was at this Big Brother, Little Brother pledge event. They went out and did some ritual in the forest. Then they hired some girls to dance in the common room of the frat house, and then some of the brothers took one of the two strippers back to their room for a private show, hung out with her for the rest of the night, and in the morning she ran to a neighboring frat house claiming that she had been raped and that the entire night's events were captured on videotape, and we used that videotape footage in the documentary, intercut with interviews with the alleged with one of the fraternity men, the alleged victim, the exotic dancer, and it's very graphic. As you said, it's very disturbing. I think the most intriguing thing about it is that reasonable, educated people will watch the footage and watch the documentary and completely disagree about whether or not they're witnessing a consensual sex act or rape.
Did you ever, I listened to you talk about this before I'd ever seen it, and I don't know if you gave an answer, but did you, without spoiling it, it's not like we're spoiling it, you basically explained what happened, but it doesn't matter unless you see it, you have no idea how well you put it together and kind of documented every single possible angle of that thing. I can't imagine the time. I'm definitely going to get into that too, the process of making these things. It's got to be crazy. But with that film, with Raw Deal, what is your thoughts on the possible alleged rape / whatever, and it was on film. Like, what did you, after spending so much time involved with that, did you have any final thoughts on what your opinion was, if it wasn't, if it was consensual? What do you think?
Well, I say that people expect videotape evidence to tell some kind of objective truth. You know, you see the surveillance video. There's the guy committing the robbery. Go find him. Case, you know, open and shut. Here, I think you've got a more complicated issue. I think you've got rape, which is probably one of the most oft committed, least reported, and prosecuted crimes in the history of mankind. And you have a crime that, in many ways, is about the most of these are not like masked man in the bushes kind of crimes. They're acquaintance rape or date rape and things that are born out of manipulation or misunderstandings or lack of communication. When I say misunderstanding, I really mean the inability of people to communicate as a result of drugs or alcohol, you know, being under the influence. And you watch this videotape footage, you realize, like, if there's a crime here, it may very well, the evidence might be in the minds of the alleged victim and the alleged perpetrator, and it becomes very complicated to prosecute. It becomes very complicated to understand, and I think we have to realize, though, is that it's easy to say, well, just don't put yourself in that situation, but I don't mean that to the women. I mean that to the men too. That if a woman is under the influence, you cannot assume consent. Otherwise, it is rape. You know, if there is not explicit consent. More importantly, and I know this is true, and I think every college freshman should like see this movie as part of orientation, to tell you the truth, men and women alike. But this is a really interesting thing that was brought to my attention back when we were shooting it, is that when you go to like those orientation type things, when you're a freshman incoming, they always tell the girls, like, listen, girls, when you're on campus, go to a party, go with a friend, don't go alone. You know, be careful of how provocative you dress. Don't accept an open beverage from a stranger. You know, open the top on the beer yourself. You know, pour your own drink if you're at a party. You know, when you walk at night, don't walk alone. Walk on the lighted paths. Stay close to the blue emergency phones, you know, on campus. But nobody ever says, guys, don't rape the girls. So immediately, like, the obligation is placed on the women to behave or dress or act a certain way or make certain decisions. And when they become victims, which unfortunately happens all too often, especially in college, the women immediately feel guilty. They immediately say, oh shit, what did I do that I wasn't supposed to do? Which rules did I break that put myself in this position? And that's why they don't report. That's why when they do report, they feel victimized all over again. And I think that's really ultimately the takeaway from this, I think.
That was interesting what you said. I never thought of that, or I never thought of it until now. When you said you would think video evidence of a reported crime would take care of it one way or the other, where we would know, oh, there it is. Okay, there's a rape or there's a crime. And I just thought back of watching that again. I'm like, I watched the whole thing. I was like glued. I watched it on my computer. I'm sitting here just like, it was tough. It was almost tough to watch. Obviously, at points were very tough to watch. And it's true, to take away, like, the end, I don't really know how I feel about it. I don't really know. It was messed up everywhere you look, but I don't, yeah, you're right. Like, what do you, so I encourage anyone that hasn't seen it, go find it. It's called Raw Deal, A Question of Consent.
Yeah, I say don't watch it alone, because you'll need someone to argue with about it or talk to, you know, with about it when you're done.
You will. You're right. And yeah, it's right. It's the one thing where video evidence doesn't prove anything. I think everyone has their opinions one way or the other. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone, I don't know any of my buddies yet that have seen it. They've seen all your other work, but they haven't seen that one. But yeah, that was a crazy, crazy story that you covered down there. You were so young. You popped into camera every once in a while trying to get into what, like, was it the prosecutor? You kept trying to talk to him, he wouldn't talk to you?
Yeah, it was the state attorney at the time, Rod Smith, who, for no good reason at all, wasn't willing to give us an interview on camera. So we staked him out outside the state attorney's office. I always have had kind of this how should we call it? The idea that public officials should be more accountable and more transparent to the people who they are responsible for and
that's terrible, Billy. I can't believe you feel that way, Bill.
Yeah, I
know.
know.
Horrible.
It's a real populist opinion, but it doesn't really seem to be incredibly popular among our leaders. I mean, we're in a legislative session right now in Florida where lawmakers at all costs are trying to keep public records private, which is insane. The idea that these the possessiveness of it, that they call them public records because they belong to us. These public officials are merely the custodians of these records. And when they act on behalf of us, and let's forget the fact that, everybody likes to say, oh, we pay your salary and all this. They're acting on behalf of the people. They represent the people. When a state attorney prosecutes someone, it says the state of Florida versus the defendant. So that's an obligation I think you take very seriously. So when they have prosecutorial discretion, I think they have an obligation to be transparent, to be accountable, and to answer our questions about those things. So yeah, I had to chase them around the block, which is what you're referring to.
Why do they want to keep public records? It just sounds, it's a funny way even to phrase that. Why do they want to keep public records private? How does it help them?
Well, it helps them because it enables them to conduct business in the back room. It enables them to negotiate privately with and not have to be accountable to the people who elected them and whose money that they're toying with this. And I mean, we have leaders. I can speak to Florida in particular because that's where I'm from and that's where I live. But we have leaders or politicians and bureaucrats who have warped values and perverse incentives. And the values are that we measure progress in the number of construction cranes on the horizon or the amount of public money that we can give away to billionaire sports team owners to build stadiums or multi-billionaire developers to build private developments on with public money on public property. And I say perverse incentives because our leaders are not negotiating deals for themselves. Like you're in private enterprise, you're negotiating on behalf of yourself, your family, your company. You're going to act in your own best interest. But these politicians and city attorneys and county attorneys, they're negotiating with our money. What do they care? It's like if I can give money away to, to this developer or this sports team owner, and they're going to donate money to my campaign, or I can give money away to sort of this special interest group or even public interest group where that union will support me in my upcoming election. Those are the perverse incentives involved. They're not negotiating with their own money, and so it puts them in a position where they don't care whether they negotiate a good deal on behalf of us, the public, or the taxpayers.
Is this something that you just care about and you're super passionate, or are you actually like filming and making a film about this or a short story or something?
Yes.
You are making a film on it?
The answer to your either or question is yes.
It was a terrible question. I phrased it terribly, but yeah.
No. It was a great question, and really the answer is yes to both. I mean, the famous saying, I always say this, is that Los Angeles is where you go when you want to be somebody, New York is where you go when you are somebody, and Miami is where you go when you want to be somebody else. And that's kind of true for a lot of Florida. And so we've been working on a project for a lot of years now called Ponzi State. Ooh. And it's about the state of Florida, particularly the state of Florida as a case study in the Great Recession and the post-Great Recession. And there's a really interesting guy, Gary Mormino. He's an economist at the University of South Florida in Tampa. And he's got a theory called the Ponzi State theory. And that theory is that since the 1950s, in Florida, since really the invention of DDT to kill the skeeters, because the mosquitoes are deadly down here, man, and central air conditioning, the invention of central air conditioning, when suddenly people could come to Florida year round. You didn't have to it wasn't just a seasonal snowbird spot, but you could just come to Florida, settle in Florida, live here. Since then, we have had on average 1,000 new arrivals every single day to Florida. So that's on average. That's an incredible number. 365,000 new people every year since the mid-50s. And what the hell do they do when they come here? As Carl Hiaasen would say, we don't produce anything in Florida but oranges and handguns. So there's no indigenous industry. So what do? They become real estate developers. They go into hospitality, construction, restaurants, tour guides. What they do is they sell the sunshine, which is our industry here, which basically is just to attract tomorrow's 1,000 newcomers and service them once they get here. So what happens? 2007 rolls around. We have our first net population decrease. So the first time since the 50s when fewer people arrive and the economy collapses. And the economist says that's the definition of a Ponzi scheme. We are not a self-sustaining economy. We rely almost solely on the new revenue and the new investment coming in every year in order to sustain the economy here. And so we kind of use that as a jumping off point to go through all the schemes and scams and crazy shit that's gone on in Florida through the years, including Ponzi schemes, including Medicare fraud, including real estate scams, lies that came true. And so it's kind of this wacky sort of Hyacinth-esque Florida romp, almost a farce, but a real tragic farce about Florida.
Well, I assume you're in the early stages of production on that, and that would segue me right into my next question. Would be just everything you just talked about right there. All I started thinking of was I cannot imagine how much work it is to produce, to film, edit, everything about a documentary. And let's just narrow it down. Talk about one of them, the number one documentary I feel in the world right now, Cocaine Cowboys. There's a sequel too, another one that's great as well. But let's just say the first one, like Cocaine Cowboys. From the time you decided that you were going to do that, you were going to start that project till it was released, how long was that?
Shit. 4, 5, 6. The moment we decide, probably almost 4 years. So when you say from the moment, like, we got the idea, we wrote a treatment, we started peddling our wares, pounding the pavement, trying to sell it or finance it, I think 4 years.
Now, what exactly is a treatment?
So a treatment is just like a summary. You just write up the idea, the structure, the story you want to tell, maybe some of the interview subjects that you have access to or want to talk to, and that's what you have to sell. You could also do a sizzle reel, cut like a trailer together, which we wound up doing both of those things because we wrote up a treatment. It was called City Made of Snow at the time, actually. Which is also a cool title.
That would work too. That would have worked.
Yeah, not nearly as sexy or marketable as Cocaine Cowboys was, but we had this big splash at Sundance with Raw Deal. We were on the front page of the New York Post. They anointed us the belles of the Sundance Ball, and we thought, like, this is it. Our next project. We really wanted it to be a Miami piece, like, because with Raw Deal, it was a Florida true crime piece, which was that was like our milieu, but we wanted to be the Miami guys. That was kind of our scheme. It was like we wanted to be to Miami what like Kevin Smith is to Jersey, Rick Linklater and Robert Rodriguez are to Austin. Baltimore has John Waters and Barry Levinson. New York has Spike Lee, Woody Allen. There's like you associate filmmakers with their city. So we wanted to like be the Miami guys because there wasn't really anybody who said, Brett Ratner's from Miami, but you don't think of him as like Miami filmmaker. You just think of him as, Brett Ratner. So we wanted to be those guys. That was part of our brand building exercise. So we wanted a calling card that was going to be like Miami. And so that's when we got this idea and we pitched it everywhere. And nobody got it.
Are these normal studios you pitch documentaries to? Like, I don't know how it works. Like your treatment is basically your script, I'm guessing, and then you go around to these studios and pitch them, or are you going to like private investors or what?
We started with distributors, and so it's an interesting thing. Like, we'll eventually get to the dogfight self-distribution model, but when we started in this business, like 2001, as indie filmmakers at Sundance, your audience was 8 people. Basically, those 8 people were the executives at the indie studios or the art house divisions of studios that released documentaries. So that was it. And if you didn't appeal to one of those 8 gatekeepers, no one would really ever see your movie.
Can you name a couple of those? The only one I can think of I see is Gravitas. Is that a studio? Or?
Well, today now you have Magnolia, Mark Cuban's. Yep. Distribution company. You have Fox Searchlight. You have Sony Pictures Classics. You have Radius at the Weinstein studio. You have those are like and there's fewer and fewer of them actually. And new ones pop up and then they go away. But the world's it's a brave new world now. I mean, look, you got a show, you got a TV show, a radio show, whatever you want to call it.
I got a green screen. You'll see it when we're done here.
Yeah.
Todd will get my logo in the back.
Be like a fish tank. What's going on?
We can do whatever you want. That's a great thing. Technology is ridiculous now.
You should fly like Superman. You could do this.
I might have you just flying, a version of you flying directly like over my head like this. like, or maybe I'll have you like I don't know. Maybe I'll have you dressed up like Dada from your recent or the Dada haircut.
Red. Yeah, the dye the red. You should dye your shit red, dude. Just like Dada.
Look at it in the light. It kind of is. Yeah, maybe I will. I don't know. That guy scares me. We'll get to him later. That guy's amazing. Yeah. What a great subject for a documentary.
And well, the reason why he dyes his hair red is that people, when we go out with each other, people always confuse us. They don't know which one's which, and so when he's got the red hair, people know, oh, he's the guy with the red hair, and Billy's the other.
That's true. Yeah, your voice is the same. You're built the same. Very similar complexion because you guys are down there in that Miami sun. Yeah, I understand. That's good. That's nice of him to really differentiate himself.
He is 270. 6'5", 6'7". I'm like one maybe 155, and I'm like 3 apples high. I mean, like he could like fit me in his pocket. It's ridiculous. He did security for Kimbo Slice.
Exactly. That's all you need. Yeah, that's all you need. Anyone that can. Yeah, that dude is. And he seems like one of the nicest, like most fair guys too throughout that whole film. Like. He fights and he knocks people out in backyards for a living, and now hopefully professionally. But they have like an awesome. That's why a film like you did with Dogfight works, because he truly cares about people, and he cares about the guys, and he doesn't let them get hurt. He's not letting anyone take cheap shots when they go down. And he, like he said, he started the whole thing in his backyard, and he became like the Don King of backyard brawling. But he's still like there was still order to it, and there was still. Rhyme and reason. He's making them weigh in. He's fair too. He's paying them even when they lose. He pays them extra. It's really, really cool to see the different like a film like. Okay, so I'll just use that one for example. Your recent one, Dogfight. You would go in with like you knew he was going to be the main the main subject, right?
Yeah.
And then all those other, let's say all these other, this could go for any documentary, but all the other stories that you intertwine throughout that. Did you already know, like, do you go in knowing what these relationships are going to be, or do you go in and it's just like whatever footage you get, you're like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. Like, look at this. This is another great angle. This is a great angle. Does it happen naturally throughout the process of filming?
It's a little bit of both. When you're doing a verite project like this, and verite is like a fancy French word for reality show.
I definitely knew what you meant.
Yeah. Well, you're just following people around with a camera and just capturing shit while real life as it's happening. And so some of it is you're like, this is my main character. I'm going to focus on him and his family. But then as you meet the various fighters and you learn more about them and you watch their fights, we had to make some difficult decisions in post-production about who would make the cut and who wouldn't make the cut. But ultimately, we knew that Dada was going to be that focal point for us. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff that just we got because we were there when it went down, and you don't even know what you got and what you didn't get until you go back. You check 9 camera angles from the backyard, and you start trying to put this all together. It was a difficult task.
So like when you get all that, say you have all these hours and hours and hours of footage done. Are you editing throughout the whole process, or do you sit down and dump it all into the computer and do it at once?
On this show, we edited a little bit as we went because we shot the first week, the first fight event, and some stuff before and after with some of the fighters to interview them and go home with some of them and kind of learn about their lives. And then we cut a reel together. And the purpose of this reel was much like the treatment on Cocaine Cowboys. It was to try to go out and find a buyer, find a seller. Because since Cocaine Cowboys and Square Grouper, the Godfathers of Ganja and Limelight, since then, we've only really worked for clients, for buyers. The business shifted from like investors to a service business where we'd go out, we'd pitch a project to an ESPN, to a VH1, to a network, and they would pay us to essentially produce this. We get a fee, and then we would deliver it to the network. And boom, that's the end of the transaction. It's essentially a work for hire. So while we were working on some of those other projects, we used the money that we were earning, and we financed this Dogfight reel. So we basically self-financed what we thought was going to be about a week or two of production, and turned out to be the whole show. Because not dissimilar to Cocaine Cowboys, we cut this reel together. People fucking loved it, but nobody would put it on their air. Nobody would buy it. everybody thought like, my God, this is fascinating. I mean, what we didn't quite know how it was all where it was gonna go from there. Because again, that was the first week of what turned out to be like a 1.5 year plus shoot. But it was solid enough where everybody was like, this is amazing. And then later on, we started to put a rough cut of the whole movie together, and it was really starting to take shape. We were very proud of it. We started to show it to our friends in the business again, and they're like, my God, this is so good. It's like Rocky in the Hood. But we're not distributing it. We're not buying it. We're not releasing it. And I was just like, how could this be? Like, we really felt strong. Like, I hadn't felt this strong or this excited about a project we had done since Cocaine Cowboys. But not unlike Cocaine Cowboys, we couldn't find a buyer for it. You know, nobody. And I finally said to my producing partners, I was like, listen, if you build it, they will come. Let's just do what we did with Cocaine Cowboys, find a way to get it out there, and hopefully it'll find an audience. But buyers were like, it's too urban, it's too violent, and it's too real. Those were 3 real comments, I swear to God. And I'd never been so excited or galvanized by rejection in my life.
It's a documentary. I hope that's a great compliment you just got.
I mean, I thought, and we all know what too urban is code for.
Oh, God. All those old, crusty white dudes are too racist to buy that thing.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about it is that when you think, and I hate to put people on blast, dude, on your show, but
do whatever you need to do, Billy.
You look at the NFL is upwards of 68+% black. The NBA is nearly 80% black. Look at the ownership. Look at these leagues, at the front offices. I think the sentiment is, or the conventional wisdom is, urban sports. Because too urban, too violent, too real. That to me is like American pop culture, man. That to me is every sport that we watch. And I'm thinking like, I think the idea is that urban sports have to be filtered through something, through some prism, through some lens that makes it more palatable so that we can sell Doritos during the commercial breaks. David Stern has got to tell guys how to dress off the court as well as how to behave on the court so that this whole brand, they can sustain this brand and continue to market it to the rest of the country. And Dogfight is all Dada. I mean, Dada is the brand. He is the David Stern. He is the owner. He is the manager. He's the guy that puts it all together. He also sees his investment being in the fighters. He never took a cut of that gate. 100% of that money went to, as you said, the purses for both winners and losers. That was just his frame of mind. His frame of mind is like, it's really the anti-NFL. It's the anti-NBA. It's almost the anti-UFC. And I think that just really scared the shit out of a lot of people.
So, like, say a buyer, who would be an example of a buyer that would turn down? Did you pitch that? Would you have wanted to make it like a 30 for 30 like the U?
I don't think it would have made a good 30 for 30.
I don't think they would have bought that one, Billy.
I got to tell you, when we pitched Dogfight as a 30 for 30, they would have thought it would have been about Michael Vick, I think is what they would have thought it would have been about. That's why we always have to spell it for people. That's why I say, if you want to see the movie, go to cocainecowboys.com, because otherwise you have to spell it, and then the dash, and then if you just... Yeah, if you just go to cocainecowboys.com, you'll find Dogfight. But we never thought that it would make a good 30 for 30. In fact, we had 4 1-hours cut that we thought it would make a cool mini series like Dogfight round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, and hopefully we'll be able to do that someday like we did with Cocaine Cowboys Reloaded. But no, everybody was just too scared of this. And they're scared. I mean, you look at Dada, you're scared of Dada. And I think people were actually also scared about how he was doing business, and more to the point, I mean, let's be real. These backyard bare knuckle brawls are illegal. They are unsanctioned. This is not a legit sport.
Yeah. So is there ever a moment during that, say, filming any of these shows, these documentaries, like Dogfight, and especially I was thinking this during Cocaine Cowboys, where you're sitting there and you're like, you know what, I don't feel very comfortable in there right now. I feel like I might be either in danger or just felt like, like in Cocaine Cowboys, who's the guy, I forget his name, that you're talking to in jail? He's in prison for life. He's telling you how he killed all these people, and how do you get access to get in there and speak to him?
Yeah. Jorge Riviala, the hitman, he's in prison for 3 lives, actually. For 3, he's serving 3 life sentences, and that was a plea bargain that he got in exchange for his cooperation so that he wouldn't get 3 death sentences, actually. I don't know what happens with death sentences if they they put you in Old Sparky like 3 times. I don't really
every like 2 years they electrocute you and then they put your body away and then they bring you back and do it again 2 more times over the next 10 years.
Sounds like something they do in Texas. Very well could be something we do in Florida too. They would just keep injecting. We don't have Old Sparky. We don't have the electric chair anymore because people's heads were lighting on fire. So they retired Old Sparky. Hell, they called it Old Sparky. I mean, you should have known that there was something defective about this device. But it was a death device, so I guess by their nature, there should be something a little off about them. But I don't remember what the hell we were talking about.
About interviewing him in jail. Like, how do you get that access into? How do you?
Yeah.
He's sitting right there. It didn't look like you were behind glass either.
Oh no. We were just in like the cafeteria.
Was he handcuffed or anything?
No.
Did you feel safe?
And in fact, the first time we met him, we just sat in we weren't shooting the interview. We just met him in an office, and they put us in an office, like little office, desk, computer, stapler, pen, paper, pencils, and there was a little like sliver of a window on the door. And every once in a while, we had a panic button, like a garage door opener that kind of looped around our thing, and then like we had like like a little thing that we just hold and I guess in case the shit hit the fan. And every once in a while, a guard would walk by the window and kind of peek in to check on us. But he comes in and man, he had brand new tennis shoes on, like sparkly white. He had bling. He had some sort of a gold chain around his neck. He had this beautiful haircut. It was like really sharp, like spiked. It reminded me of Sean Connery's toupee in Hunt for Red October. Remember that? Like you're that gray, spiky, like badass, like James Bond shit, and like and then he had a watch that was backwards. And I remember the watch because he would sit there and he kept glancing at his watch during the meeting. Like I'm like, does he have someplace to go? Like what? Like he's serving 3 life sentences. So, and he went into this monologue, man. Unfortunately off camera, about how he shivved a black guy, and he used a different term for black guy, how he shivved a black guy at the previous institution that he was at and had been transferred to this new institution, and he didn't think the leadership cared for him very much there. So he was concerned how they were treating us. He was wondering if we were being treated okay. And he I don't know, you remember, like he has kind of a whisper.
Oh yeah.
So he would you'd have to like lean into him to like hear to hear him sometimes, like when he's talking one-on-one, like when we were off camera or setting up, and you'd be like, I don't know, centimeters away you'd be like ear to ear with this guy, and he's so soft-spoken and charming and articulate, and you have to like kind of smack yourself in the face and go, this is a murderer, that you're talking to. And here's a story. Fuck it, I'm going to tell this story. I don't tell this story that often, and certainly I don't even tell the story in private that often, but I'll tell you the story because our first documentary, we were talking about Raw Deal. We had one of these. It was like classic, like indie filmmakers Sundance dream turned nightmare. And so we had an issue with our distributor. They had like basically stolen our movie. They weren't paying us for it. It was just a total nightmare. The company's out of business now, thank God. And
good, they deserve it.
And so like we were having an issue, and it was really like kind of getting us down, and we finally got back to work again. And my grandfather said to me, because he saw like I was really kind of sad about what was going on with this other movie, and he's like, "You're a producer, go out and produce." So we went out and started working on Cocaine Cowboys, and Alfred Spellman, my producing partner, we were kind of distracted, and while we were setting up the footage, Rivi would just be sitting there because they would bring him out to like sit and wait for us to be set up. We had 3 cameras, one on a dolly. The Florida Corrections folks were really very nice to us because we did not roll light. And long story even longer, Rivi says to Alfred, he's like, "Are you guys okay? What's going on? You seem kind of like concerned or distracted." And Alfred says, "Yeah, we're having this issue with our distributor on this other movie we did. They're not paying us and they won't give us the movie back." And he goes, "Alfred, somebody owe you money?" And Alfred's like, well, yeah. Okay. He's like, "Somebody owe you money. You just call my brother. He'll take care of it for you." You call my brother. and he'll take it. And Alfred's like, holy shit, you know, this guy was an enforcer. You know, in the drug trade, cocaine was a consignment business. It was you know, it was upwards of $50,000 a kilo wholesale once it got to America. You buy it for $5,000 a key, you know, in the late 70s on a airstrip in Colombia. You know, the value add came from the actual smuggling, you know, getting it to America, which is why the Colombians ultimately tried to push out the Cubans and other smugglers and try to get into the retail or the wholesale business here in America. But so you'd give someone 4 kilos and you'd say, okay, here's the 4 kilos. How much time do you need to give me the 200 grand that you owe me? They say, oh, get back at me in 2 weeks. No problem.
So would this be in Colombia, you're saying, or are they already in the States?
This would be here. This would be, yeah, because Colombia was much cheaper. The risk, you know, the reward came with the risk of smuggling it into the U.S. So then it was worth it. So you'd give someone 4 kilos and you'd say, that's 200 grand that you owe me. When do you want to pay me? They said, I'll pay you in 2 weeks or whatever, 3 weeks, whatever deal you'd struck. And 2 weeks later, if they didn't have the money, you're not going to sue them. you're not going to call the police. They had enforcers, and the enforcers were either there to go collect the money, or they were there to collect the debt one way or another. And they would collect it in green, or they'd collect it in red. They'd collect it in cash, or they'd collect it in blood. And that's the way that the Colombians did business. And so Rivi is saying, you need help with collections.
Oh, man.
You call my brother. And that was a particularly surreal moment in the making of Cocaine Cowboys.
That's awesome. You can't draw that up. If you wrote that in a script for a movie, no one would believe you. That's how unique of characters you guys seem to find and kind of pulled that kind of stuff out of them. And just when all the interviews, you were explaining it, 3 cameras, 1 on a dolly. That's like the little things that I don't think people think about. And now that, I mean, I'm a documentary, I'm just crazy about documentaries. Apple TV has changed everything. I go on there through Netflix and I check on through iTunes and just see whatever new documentaries come about, and I'm watching them. And so you're just doing one little simple interview. If I'm thinking of doing that, someone that not a filmmaker, don't do anything even close, I'm thinking, okay, well, you got to have one camera, maybe put it over my shoulder and shoot him. You know, that's it. And that's the thing, now that I'm thinking of the movie, like when he's talking, like how you guys have it lit, first off, is cool. And then, yeah, you do like all these sweeping cuts, and then you go from his face to him talking to, like, you'll cut to old newspaper articles, old footage. How much, like, do you guys, do you have a team of people at least that can help, like, scan all those papers? And I was thinking even of, you probably had to convert a ton of VHS tapes into digital, didn't you?
We went to every format. There was film formats. There was ancient video, 3/4 inch. There was 1/2 inch, which is VHS. We shot some shit on Super 8 film ourselves. Like, it was crazy in terms of like the mixed media involved in this.
Do you have a bunch of people with you, or that's just the amount of work. It's just overwhelming to even think about.
Yeah, it was. We had a big team of 3, and that includes me. At the time. We had other collaborators who helped us shoot. Who helped us, score it, obviously. Jan Hammer, who did Miami Vice music, did the score. But really the core team on that movie was me, Alfred, and David Sipkin, our third partner. It was just the 3 amigos just doing the research, doing the interviewing. And Dave and I edited in my apartment that movie. And what's interesting, I thank you for noticing this, the style, because it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. And we're slaves to story, and we like to just adapt. I think we have a style, but then we like to adapt it depending on the subject matter of the movie. And in 2004, when we first started shooting, 2004, 2005, like, all of that shit is old hat now. People use dollies, people use multiple cameras. Back then, it wasn't that common of a thing that you'd see docs shot with a dolly. Now like Dateline, now everybody does that. I don't want to say we were the first to do it, but we were very early guys to say, like, okay, we need to bring a style to this, to the movie called Cocaine Cowboys that's going to make sense for this pace. So I had a whole like style book. I was like, we need minimum 2 cameras, one of them on a dolly, constantly in motion. We need, instead of fading to black, we're going to fade to white. The color scheme is pastels. I want to blow things out. We want, pastel colors, baby blue. The sky's gonna be blown out white. I wanted Jan Hammer. I wanted like a heavy synth '80s score. I wanted a lot of fast cutting. I think the average movie, they say, has about in the range of like 12 to 1,500 cuts in its total running time. Cocaine Cowboys has like 5,000 cuts in it. So the idea was like, you were, after it was over, you're like, holy shit, I felt like I was just on a two-hour cocaine bender, you know, like and that was the idea of the effect we wanted to have. And I, pardon me, I say that the job of a filmmaker is to find a good story and then don't fuck it up. Or you can say find a good story and then tell it well. That's the PG version of that. But the idea is, if you have a good story or a good script, like, if you just stay out of its way or you serve that story, it should be good. Now, obviously, there are a million decisions you make over the course of directing or producing a movie, and if any of that combination is wrong, the thing could be a disaster. But I say, like, my test is RAS, I call it, relevance, access, style. So relevance, how do you know it's a good idea? Is it relevant? Will anybody give a shit about this story if you're going to spend the next X number of years and somebody else's money, you know, putting this together? And then access is, you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's like access to anything, to talent, to script, to interesting interview subjects, to distribution, to camera, what, you know, equipment, locations, whatever it may be. And then style is what I was getting at before, which is, you know, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. Like, what do you bring to the table? We were pitching the U to ESPN. We had all this stuff, and then they were like, well, what's it going to look like and feel like and sound like? And we were just went, do you see Cocaine Cowboys? They're like, yeah. We're like, just like that. It was a shorthand, you know.
That's just, it's ridiculous to think about how much work that is. But why'd you choose documentaries and not like feature films?
They kind of found us. I mean, we went to school and we were studying. I was one of my three majors was screenwriting. I went to the University of Miami, which means I'm a functioning illiterate. And suntan you, baby. And they always like to say that, like, oh, we want to be the Stanford of the East or the Harvard of the South. Well, the University of Miami is the Harvard of tuition of the South. I'll tell you that right now.
It is. You're right. And there's not many. There's not many. You don't have many. What is it? Like 3,000 or 4,000 undergrad?
Oh, it's really. I mean, all told, I think it's like 8,000 to 10,000 students. Like
really?
All to that.
Yeah,
that
smaller
includes
than
the
I always thought it was. For some reason, I was always thinking it was huge. It was like 50,000. You know, like Ohio State or like Texas, all these big old schools, and it's like a smaller private deal going on down there that you guys have.
Tiny private school. Yeah, and it's, people don't know this, the University of Miami is not even in Miami. It's in Miami-Dade County, but it's not in the city of Miami. It's in the city of Coral Gables, which is this kind of like wealthier enclave of Miami-Dade County, which, if you saw the U, you know that was culture shock for a lot of the football players, and then a lot of the people in the community acclimating to having an edgier presence on the campus, which of course made Miami a much more exciting place than it ever was before.
You're right. Anyone that you're referencing the U that you did for ESPN, which was awesome. That was another thing. I mean, you just keep coming out with the hits, and that's why I think that you're making super relevant things that. But your style is just so cool and fast, and something normal documentaries I don't think people like to sit and watch. But I think it is whatever it is that art, you know, it's the cuts, it's the colors, it's everything about it. Just keeps you going, keeps you on the edge of your seat, really. And Broke was another one you did that was great. I mean, that's really cool. I think for people outside, like I've seen. Yeah, I hear horror stories all the time about guys' families and people just draining them, taking everything from them. And so how you covered every angle of that was amazing. It was really cool because I think that kind of opened up people's eyes around that really didn't think of it and would only just think, oh, these are just dumb athletes. I couldn't blow $100 million, or not even. I shouldn't even say 100. A lot of people I've heard say, oh, you couldn't blow $1 million if you tried. I was like, all right, buddy, give me 2 minutes. I could do it. Like, you can do it. Anyone can do it, especially with computers now. So I think you gave a little bit of a story there to where people, just from the outside, if you're ignorant about it, you think, man, how could you? And it's true, athletes are notoriously dumb, and we spend money and we blow our money and whatever. That happens, but there's more than there's more than that meets the eye when it comes to that. And that's one of those things, I think, going into that when you were doing Broke, was that something that you thought you would uncover? Or like, how much of that subject did you know about, athletes losing money, taking care of family, getting bad investments? Did you know a lot going in?
Broke's a tough one for me because it was a difficult production. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't know that I've ever...
Because you had to deal with athletes, right?
No, although that was challenging too. But
I'm just being flaky and late and not wanting to tell the truth, probably.
And it was a sensitive subject, you know that athletes have a lot of pride, and ego, and this is not the type of subject that people like to discuss. They say the worst dinner table conversations are politics and religion. I would add money to that.
I would add CrossFit to that as well. With the CrossFit craze, I'm sorry, that's a whole different world. But CrossFit. I just added CrossFit to that list, at least at my dinner table.
I just made that joke that like what we're really missing in Miami is another CrossFit gym.
I can't imagine down there too.
There's one like 2 blocks from here. I can hear them like right now.
You can hear them all fist bumping at the end of their workout. Good job. Their teammates.
So don't get me started.
I'm sorry to get you off track. Was it difficult finding guys to open up and speak about?
Let me tell you this. I haven't talked about this a whole hell of a lot. But Broke is the only movie that we made that if I happen on the rare chance that I have time to flip through the channels and it's on, I can't watch it. It's really tough for me just because of the strife we went through making it, access issues, the NBA, NHL, and MLB all refused to license us footage because of the subject matter of the movie. The NFL was like, "We'll take your money." They're smart. They're like, "You want to pay us for shit? We don't care what it's about." Which I thought was really great. But to their credit, but like it was just a tough show, and it didn't turn out to be as much of a story to me. And I like to tell stories. It was less about the people and more about the problem. So it became like this like a scared straight kind of a thing where it was like, here is a step-by-step guide how to go broke. And what was surprising to me was how easy it is. It's exactly what you were getting at before. It's like, where the hell does $10 million go, or $50 million go, or $70 million go? It's like, it's so easy to go broke making that kind of money. In fact, it's even easier to go broke making that kind of money than just making 50 grand, 100 grand a year, I think.
And especially when it's public and people know how much all those guys make. Of
course.
That makes them a huge target. And I've said it on here before, man, people's families just drain them. Like, I'm very lucky. My family and my in-laws are awesome and don't come to me and my wife and try to have us, take care of every aspect of their life. But I have a ton of teammates and former teammates who they have multiple people in their family, which I understand is cool. If you need to buy your parents a house or whatever, that's great. A car to get around in.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to buy your mom.
Yeah, you have to. But then these people, sometimes their families expect them they'll put them on salary. They'll quit their jobs, whatever the jobs their parents have, and they just have salaries from their kids for doing nothing, basically. They might give them a title and say they run their foundation or reading their fan mail or whatever. And then, which I'm like, oh my gosh, man, it's just draining you. That would blow my mind if I had to do that. And then that's on top of paying probably for 25 cell phone bills for extended family and friends. And then the day you're done playing, whatever sport it may be, you're not getting paid, and these people still expect this salary coming in. And you can't do it. You can't do that forever. You're going to hemorrhage all your money away. So it's one of those things. I think Broke opened people's eyes to that a bit, that, you know what? These guys may not be geniuses, but I can at least have a little bit of, not sympathies wouldn't be the right word, but I can understand a little more how this happens.
Well, let me say that, conventional wisdom is that professional athletes spend a lot of money on stupid shit. And spoiler alert, professional athletes spend a lot of money on stupid shit. But that conspicuous consumption is barely the tip of the iceberg to me. Because, first of all, in my experience, athletes are not dumb per se. They're focused, or they're smart about what it is that they're focused on. But their entire lives, for most athletes, have been focused on this one skill set, learning a playbook. I mean, I couldn't learn a fucking playbook. I don't know where I would begin, and then have to execute this two-dimensional guide into a three-dimensional world in which there are men trying to clobber the shit out of you. And I mean, I think it's a very complex, and it requires a certain intellect that non-athletes can't understand. At the same time, I think it has more to do with youth and naivete. The idea that if I were 19 years old, 20 years old, I would come up with all sorts of exciting ways to blow that kind of money. I mean, like, what, and you're just, and I think athletes are, I don't have to tell you, like, are superstitious. Like, when you're starting your career, you don't want to start planning for the end of your career. If you're not even married yet, you're not preparing for a divorce. If you're all about that positive mindset and winning, you don't want to think about a career-ending injury. You don't want to go there, And so guys are just like, they don't want to deal with the money shit. And then I find, you were talking about, some of your teammates that you've experienced. These guys are so good-natured. They're so good-hearted. I feel like they have such a sense of obligation to their neighborhoods and their communities, their families. They're blessed to play a game, to generate this kind of revenue, and they really feel like it's their responsibility to lift everybody up, and you can't win. You got to learn how to say no, man.
You do. It's a very it's a difficult situation, and I see it all the time, and it's almost like sometimes there's obviously parents that say, "Hey, I drove you to practice. I did everything. I drove you out to those tournaments." I'm like, "Okay, you were a parent. What do you want? You had the kid. That means nothing to me that you drove me to practice. Like, thank you very much." My dad and mom had 3 kids, and they drove us everywhere. They came to every single one of my games, and they don't sit there and hold their hand down and expect a salary for it. That's your if. I have 2 kids. My obligation is to love them and try to make them the best people they can possibly be and support them. I don't expect anything from that other than them to try to be good kids. So it's just a messed up system it's sad because guys, you'll see what happens is you listen to older guys that they'll say, "I finally had to say no. I had to like tell my mom even, like, I can't do this anymore. You got a house that's paid for. You got a car. I can't be giving you any money." And the sad thing is a lot of times then their families like disown them. And then their mom will go talk to their aunts and uncles and brothers and say, "Oh, your brother's a sellout. He won't take care of us anymore. He doesn't love us." And I'm like, gosh, it's so sad, man, to see that. But if the guy wants to have a decent quality of life and just have a tiny shred of what he made, he's going to have to make that decision at some point.
Leon Searcy told me a story. I'm sorry. I asked him, I said, "Leon, how did you change? Or how do you think you changed when you got money?" And he said, "You know what, Billy?" He said, I can't, it's tough for me to see the forest for the trees. Like, I'm me. How can I, you're always you to you. You don't really, can't really detect changes, particularly in your character or personality. He said, "But I can tell you this. The people around me sure changed a whole hell of a lot after I got money." He goes, "You could ask them how I changed, and I'm sure I did. I'm not denying it." He goes, but they sure changed. My family changed. My friends changed, and they started treating me a lot differently. And I can't even imagine. And like you said, when your salary gets published on the front page of every website and newspaper, I can't imagine the pressure that brings. And then people don't understand. I mean, football in particular, you've got the shortest average career, highest rate of career-ending injury. You've got the lowest average salary, mostly not guaranteed contracts. In fact, practically no guaranteed contracts. And you've got a lot of guys who are journeymen in the game who make a living. They might make a good living, but then you get up and traded. And if anybody's ever had to move before, that's a huge pain in the ass. And it's expensive. And if you bought a house somewhere and your kids are in school and you don't have to up and move and maybe, sell in a down market, and try to move someplace else and get it can be a very, the obligations and medically and in terms of moving around, like it's even particularly for the guys making league minimum, which I get is better than the average American salary. It's still tough to just make ends meet. And even the guys who are the vast minority making those like multi-million-dollar front page news kind of salaries, even those guys, I mean, half that money's gone. Keith McCants told me this crazy story when he got drafted first round out of Alabama. He signed, I think it was like some 3-year, $7 million deal. I'm sort of, rounding off. The next day, his mom's house got robbed, got burgled. They broke into his mom's house and ransacked the house as if he had that $7 million in a duffel bag under the bed or something. Like, yeah, he might have gotten a signing bonus in a check at some point, but like the mentality of how people start acting around you is just, I mean, it's really quite just a personal stress, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great problem to have, obviously, but it's definitely something that people are. It's a struggle for a lot of guys and everybody. And like you said, you just got to find a way to say no, which a lot of times it's tough to do. People want to take care of their friends. It made me think of your guy from Cocaine Cowboys that I keep coming back to, the great documentary, when he said he had to keep buying houses in Miami because he had too much cash, and it was like floor to ceiling. It was like the movie Blow. He was like the real version of Johnny Depp, and what is it, Pablo, his buddy that turned on him.
Yeah, they changed all the names. You read the book, and then like changed all the names in the movie. It was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, it was like what was his name again? The kind of bald guy with his slick back hair.
I don't remember, dude. I saw Blow once.
I mean, in Cocaine Cowboys. I mean,
you mean John Roberts?
Yeah.
May he rest in peace. John passed away.
Oh, when? Recently?
No, a couple of years ago.
Okay.
Cancer. Yeah. But,
well, you're interviewing him, and he's talking about I just assume everybody's seen Cocaine Cowboys, by the way. And I don't care if they haven't. I don't care. They'll go watch it, and they can understand what we're talking about. But you're sitting there interviewing him, and he's talking about how he has like these wild animals and horses and properties. And where was he in like the pecking order of the drug sales?
Very low on the totem pole. He was a wholesaler, like the town was filled with wholesalers. I mean, the neighborhood of Coco Plum in Coconut Grove, this guard-gated community kind of on this cool canal, the DEA called it Cocaine Plum because so many drug dealers, smugglers, and wholesalers lived there. That was the neighborhood that Tony Montana's house neighborhood was based on. And a lot of these guys bought tigers and mountain lions. And again, that also was in Scarface. Oliver Stone, who wrote the screenplay to Scarface, he came down to Miami and spent some time here and did his research.
Really?
We'll call it. Yeah. And he got it right. I mean, everybody looks at it as this like over the top operatic kind of a farce, but it was incredibly accurate. What they were able to cover in that nearly 3 hours of Scarface was incredibly real. I'll tell you a funny cutting room story about John, because one of the most popular questions about Cocaine Cowboys, and we try to answer it in a little scene during the end credits, is what happened to all the money? And so when John got out of prison, he went like right to a strip club, because that's John's scene. And he picked up this dancer there and with this line. This is a great line, by the way. I'm going to use this. Have you ever seen $1 million? Cash. I mean, have you ever seen $1 million? So that got her attention. So he's like, I'm going to show you $1 million. When you're off your shift, when your shift is done, I'm going to take you and show you $1 million. So they drive in her car to, a guy just got out of prison, give him a break. So they drive in her car to where this bank was. He had a safety deposit box that he put $1 million cash away before he went away. And they get there, and it's been totally paved over. It's a brand new, like mini mall, like shopping plaza. And he goes over to a payphone. He calls the bank's 800 number, and he says, this is Mr. Smith, or whatever name he gave them, fake name. He's like, I used to have a safety deposit box here from several years ago. They're like, oh, Mr. Smith, don't panic. If you just go a couple miles up the road, we moved the contents of all those safety deposit boxes to this other location. There's just one issue. You have an outstanding bill. You have a balance due. He's like, no problem, whatever it is, a couple $100, whatever it is. So they drive over to the bank, and he says to the stripper, can I borrow a couple $100? I gotta pay the balance on this safety deposit box. So I'm guessing she counted them out in ones, like instinctively she got whatever it was. He goes inside, he pays his balance. They take him in. The first thing he notices as they slide the drawer out is that there's like red tape around the drawer as they slide it out. And then when the bank manager handed it to him, he noticed it was much lighter than the way that he left it years earlier. And he opens the lid, and inside is nothing but a sheet of paper, a letter on IRS letterhead. And it said something to the effect of, Dear Mr. Smith, If you wish to discuss the contents of this box, please contact Agent so-and-so at 305, et cetera, et cetera. John called his attorney, and his attorney said, call it back taxes. I'm not even calling. You'll never get that money back again. You'll never see that again.
Wow. Yeah, the IRS can do whatever they want, man. If you owe them money, that's great. That's why people are scared of the banks, Billy. They don't want to put their money in there, even if it's in a safety deposit box.
Dude, I'm going to put my money in the mattress. That's the safest place.
I'm sure, yeah. That sounds like those guys had money everywhere. How did you reach out and meet all those guys to interview them in that? And because that's like you pulled guys from everywhere. Like I know, like in Dogfight, most of the guys you're talking to are involved in the backyard and around. But in Cocaine Cowboys, I thought it was really interesting when you would interview the pilot too, who would fly a lot of the drugs in. That guy was, I think, he had a sweet ponytail too for an old dude, and he was a very compelling character. Like, is it hard to get access to him? And then once you do, or do they seem to be willing to speak, or do you kind of have to like really talk them into it?
Well, it depends on the guy, obviously. You know, I'm not a South Beach guy. I'm more of a dive bar guy. And one of my favorite pastimes here in Miami is to go to a dive bar and just grab a stool next to the crustiest dude you can find, strike up a conversation, and invariably he is some deposed third world leader, some guy that just got out of federal prison on a 20-year, drug smuggling rap or Medicare fraud rap or whatever. And you're talking to some like just endlessly fascinating person. And so you just literally in Miami, you just kind of meet those people. And in this case, my cousin calls me up and says, I met this dude at the pool at my condo, John Roberts. And he was in a book by a guy named Max Mermelstein, who features in Cocaine Cowboys and a little more prominently in Cocaine Cowboys Reloaded. And he's in the book. John Purnell Roberts is in Max Mermelstein's book. And so Alfred, my producing partner, who has read all this stuff, he was already read up on it because we were thinking about doing this for our next project. And we're like, holy shit, we got to go to the pool and meet this guy. So we went to the pool at this condo in Aventura and sat down with John Roberts and heard his war stories, literally some of them from Vietnam, and then his war stories about the cocaine wars in Miami. And through him, we got to Mickey Monday, who was the smuggler you were talking about with like that long, hair, that Miami redneck guy, Mickey Monday,
yep.
And who's like a folk hero now. I mean, he hangs out all over town in Miami.
Is he still flying?
No, not so much. I mean, sometimes he's a hobbyist with friends, but mostly he's got 2 feet on the ground. He still does a lot of boating whenever he gets a chance because he's a genius just with a boat. So he'll go to boat shops and help friends, build and repair boats. And we interviewed him for Collision Course, which was a 30 for 30 short that we did about the murder of Don Aronow, who was like he was like the Steve Jobs of the offshore, fast boat world. And so Mickey's just like, he's a boating guy. That was the culture he grew up in, was a boating culture.
He was awesome when he said it was very interesting. He said when he would be flying to Miami from the south, he would fly like all the way up around past Georgia up north and then come back down because I guess he said then he wouldn't be suspicious. It wouldn't be keep coming in the same route coming from the south because they would expect drugs coming up or something. And so I'm like, obviously he had to add tons of time to his flight every time, but I was like, that makes a lot of sense. It's pretty simple like to think about, but it makes sense.
Well, they would fly literally below radar, and that's when they would pop up. So, like, they would appear on radar as a southbound flight, as a southbound plane, so that they would seem less suspicious. Coming, obviously, from the south north, when you're on the radar, they might want to ask you some questions when you land. But what he did was not only did he add more time to the flight, but they required more fuel. So here was a particularly brilliant innovation that Mickey Monday came up with, the fuel bladder. So what he would do is he built like these or bought these bladders that could contain fuel. So it was like a bag, it reminds me of, it's like when you go bike riding, you have those like hydration bags, like those IV
Camel Pack or whatever.
Exactly. So that's what these were, these giant but much more sturdy material, because they had to hold jet fuel. And so he would put wooden planks across the plane, and then he'd put these bladders underneath, and then they'd fly to Colombia. He would throw the planks away and flatten out the bladders that they had used for fuel, which would give him more space on the plane to put more cocaine, more of a load onto the plane. And then he'd and that's how he would, and those bladders would supplement the fuel supply because they were attached to the engines and the traditional and normal fuel supply of the plane.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, man. Like, some high-level criminals there figuring some stuff out. that's what you do, though. You bring so many different like themes in and so many stories in. It's almost like, how do you ever know like when is enough footage and when isn't, like when you finally have enough and you're like, okay, it's in the can. Let's start editing now.
That's tough. The first cut of Cocaine Cowboys was 4 hours long. I'll never forget. I called up Alfred. And I said, I was so excited because Dave and I had been hammering away for like almost a year on editing this movie. And we thought we had all the best stuff in there. It was a rough cut, no doubt. But I called him up and like, we got the first rough cut. And he's like, how long is it? I said, 4 hours. He said, fuck you, keep cutting. And he hung up. He hung up the phone. And we went back. And for a while, we thought we'd make it 2 movies where it would be about the drugs and the money. And then it would be about the enforcement and the murder that kind of turned Miami upside down, brought in the law enforcement that ultimately kind of crushed the cocaine wars as we knew them in the 80s. But finally, we just said we got to cut it to the best 2 hours we could, and hopefully someday I wanted to revisit it, which we did years later for Cocaine Cowboys Reloaded. But I'll tell you, normally the best material winds up in the final cut. It's like, oh, you cut out the stuff that's not as good. I will tell you, some of the material we cut out of Cocaine Cowboys was just as good, if not better, than the material that made the final cut. Why would we do that? It's because we were not only trying to find the best material, but we had to tell a story. There had to be a beginning, a middle, and an end. There had to be some sort of flow and transitions and connections from story to story. And the same thing was on Dogfight, because Dogfight, we weren't just shooting interviews. We were shooting real life as these fights and as these fighters' lives, were unfolding. And, I can't tell the story because it's a spoiler alert, actually. I caught myself, but I'll tell you that, like I said, we shot for almost 2 years. It was at least a year and a half. And, these guys were fighting to, following in the footsteps of Kimbo Slice, the godfather of the game, where he videotaped himself in a backyard in Southwest Miami-Dade. They uploaded the footage online, and the goal was to get discovered by like a professional MMA trainer or promoter and go pro. And so Kimbo became like the idol of those guys of that neighborhood, and he inspired a whole new generation of guys with very little other opportunity to try to fight their way out, to a better life for themselves and their family. And while we were making this movie, we saw at least like 3 or 4 guys go pro, and 2 guys, as you know, that didn't live that long.
And you make it human, like throughout. I'm not going to give anything away, but throughout the whole deal, I think it almost like surprises you how. I don't know how to describe it. You just do such a good job of talking to so many different people. Have so many, like, there's some brutal scenes, yeah, when guys are fighting, and then there's some funny scenes. I love the old ladies you would always talk to after the fights, and how they were just amazing. So anyone sees that, they'll love these, like, old grandmas or moms of some of the fighters, or just from the community that are explaining what happened and talking about certain fighters. They're just super entertaining. And then there's like sad parts, and you show how human these guys are, and then it's almost like, yeah, the one dude, man, it's like the comeback kid. You feel good for him. You feel really good for guys, and you feel good for how they stand up with him. Say a guy's losing fights, but he fights hard. He lays it all out there. Dada pays him and tells him, I respect what you're doing. At least you got in the ring and you gave it your all, even though you may be blacked out laying on the ground. So he takes care of his guys. So there's like it's what you do there. I got to give you credit for that. I think people overlook that watch things like that. And it's stuff that I used to before I really started to pay attention to things, and I've been a fan of you forever. But the little things, like you said, 3 cameras, 1 on a dolly, just for one guy's interview and intersplicing all this stuff. Is that like is that something that you guys they teach you when you're in film school, or is it just how your head works and we can all see your crazy manic energy? I'm sure you're all over the place. So you want to watch something like that too, don't you?
Yeah, we make this shit up as we go along. I mean, you have to have your own aesthetic, you know, and you have to. I've said it again. I'll say it one more time. You have to serve the story, and this to me was like we call our genre of documentaries. We call them pop docs because they tend to be more in the line of pop culture, a little bit pulpier, and you know, I guess more not as socially conscious as traditional documentaries that you think of are. And so the stories we tell are a little bit dirtier, a little bit more raw. And so we like to do it in a style that, for example, Cocaine Cowboys, we never looked at it as a documentary. We always called it a gangster movie. Like that's what Cocaine Cowboys was to us in terms of like legit film genres. And then with Dogfight, I was like, because you need to communicate with your collaborators, you know, your composers and your cinematographers. We had 9 cameras in the backyard, and your editors. I'm like, this is an '80s action movie. This is Rocky, which is '70s, but you got the idea. This is Karate Kid. You know, like that's the idea we should. Now it's real, obviously. I'm not trying to belittle you know, the experience of these men, but just in putting the story together and trying to make it compelling and trying to, you know, to honor the lives and the sacrifices and the, you know, and the tragedy in many cases of what these guys go through in their lives and in their deaths. You know, we just wanted to bring something that was that people would watch, that they would want to watch, that they'd want to tell other people to watch, so that we could share their stories with the world. Because if it's boring or not interesting or not well put together, or it's not in a dramatic or aesthetic or cinematic language that audiences like and can relate to, you might not find an audience.
And I'm going to let you go here. I know I've kept you long. How do people? What's the best way for people to find it?
CocaineCowboys.com. And people, I'm glad we talked about Cocaine Cowboys. I was telling you earlier that for a while, a lot of people thought that Cocaine Cowboys was about Michael Vick. I fucked that up. It was about, a lot of people thought that's what they thought Dogfight was about, but they thought Cocaine Cowboys was about Michael Irvin in Dallas, which is actually a great idea.
The White House, right? When they called the White House? Yeah, you could. And he has Miami. He went to the U.
It's all about the, and we didn't even talk about the Fiesta Bowl.
I know, Billy. I know, man.
Were you MVP? Were you?
No, come on. I was only a freshman. I was not of that.
Yeah, you were a freshman.
I
but
played
like,
in it later in the Fiesta Bowl a couple other times.
That's yeah. You play.
But
son of a bitch. But you were in that game though as a freshman,
yeah,
though, aren't you?
I was a freshman. I got to play. I played on special teams and a little bit on defense that game, but. Those guys were good, man. That's all we thought. I remember after the first kickoff return, I was on kickoff return with a bunch of my freshman buddies, and the ball was kicked. I think it was even a touchback maybe. We came on the sideline like, you get your dude? We're like, no, my dude was like 15 yards past us. I was like, these guys can fly. And I'm sure you have strong opinions. I'm sure you have strong opinions.
My bad. Hang on. I'm sorry. I fucked that up. I remember the MVP of that game. It was Terry Porter.
Terry Porter?
Yeah.
Who's that? Shut up. I know you're going. I don't even know if that's the ref, Billy. I'm mad. I've never heard. I literally have never heard that guy's name, and I could just tell by the look on your face that's where you were going. That would be the.
How could you never have heard his name? They got a picture of him in the athletic department.
Oh.
And I was, what are you talking about? You guys light candles. There's like a shrine there to him, isn't there?
But Billy, it should have never been that close. Weren't you guys so much better?
You're absolutely right.
Why was it even that close?
You're absolutely right. You were right that these guys were good, but they weren't good enough that day. I mean, that is a fact. You guys were the better team, and Terry Porter, he really came out for you that day. Sure. I got to tell you.
I don't believe a word you're saying about us being a better team either, Billy. we got the trophy, luckily, but I know people have strong opinions on both sides of that game and the old controversial pass interference call.
Okay, I gotta ask you this though. Now I gotta interview you for a minute.
Yeah. What?
So did you see the U Part 2 that we did?
Of course.
So, man, did I get trolled hard by your fans, by Ohio State fans? But which I think is okay because I think I trolled you guys pretty hard, like in the movie.
Yeah.
All the way to the end, all the way to the last shot. But for at least 20 seconds or however long it was, they did have 6 national championships. But like, how fair or unfair were we in terms of the way we treated that game in the U Part 2, 30 for 30?
I thought you were pretty fair. I didn't think it was like a crazy bias piece or whatever. I try to step back and look at it from both sides. Honestly, I was like, well, if I was in Miami, dude, which I never would have been, they would have never recruited me. First off, that's why they would never recruited me to play there. But I try to look at it from both sides, and I mean, yeah, man, you're all right. It was fine. I'm okay. I'm okay with it. I'm not like a guy to sit there and I'm not a big like arguer about things. I'm not a guy that wants to sit there and get in a debate with a guy for an hour about certain things. Especially a guy like you. You would just wear me down, and I would probably just agree with you after 10 minutes. You just talk circles around me, and your energy would just knock me down. It's like, all right, Billy, you got it. You're right. I'm wrong. I don't even know if my name's AJ anymore. You would just.
I don't want to argue with you. I did that for 3 hours with Joe Rogan. It was exhausting.
I listened. It was great,
dude. I swear to God. I was so like I was jet lagged. I was nervous.
What were you guys arguing about? What started it,
dude? So for years, first of all, Joe's been like a raging supporter of Cocaine Cowboys.
Oh my God, that's all he ever would talk about before you came on there. It was great.
He's the best. Like he's been like really important and influential, really, for our careers. I because of that podcast and because of him talking up Cocaine Cowboys. So for years we've been trying to be in LA at the same time to do that podcast. And finally, I'm like, well, shit, we got the fighting movie, right? Like it makes perfect sense. Me and Joe will talk about Dogfight. I don't know that we talked about it for 3 minutes. In 3 hours. In 3 hours. And we talked about Dogfight for 3 minutes. But we spent like 30 minutes arguing nature versus nurture. I mean, like, it was crazy. And then it was, and he is so passionate and he is so smart. And like, I was like halfway through this, I'm like, why are we arguing about this? Like, what? And he's hilarious too. I don't know if you've ever seen his stand up. He's like, yeah. People don't like really think of him as like a stand up, but like he's fucking brilliant. And when it was all over, I swear to God, so I'm like jet lagged, I'm nervous, I'm totally over caffeinated perpetually. And I was gonna hashtag caffeine cowboys. That's my thing. So like it's over, and I describe myself. I felt like Casper at the end of Kids. I was like, when he like just like bolts up on the floor, like, and he goes like, "What the hell just happened?" Like, that's how I said to Joe when we were off the air, I was like, "That was 3 hours? Like, what the hell did we just talk about?" He's like, "What?" I like.
It was great. I went through. Oh man, I remember that was anyone that hasn't heard it. Please go because you were. Please listen to it. Like you said, 3 hours. It didn't feel like even 3 hours listening to it. A lot of times I'll cut it up when I listen to Joe's podcast. Throughout multiple days. That one I was trying to get it all in one day because you guys. It was just so funny to me, and I was like, I don't know whose side I'm on here. I don't know. Oh, I'm like jumping sides back and forth with who I agreed with, you and Joe.
And he like hates Miami. He like hates.
That's how it started off.
Thing.
I remember.
It's not a sports thing. Because I'm wearing my like Miami shirt. It says like Miami 50 times on there.
Oh, he has no idea about sports. Yeah, he has no idea about football, and so that's how he started right off the jump. He's like, "What are you doing in Miami?" And you said something about LA, and then it was on. Like it was just on for the rest of the time. So it was very fun. I thought you handled yourself well. If there's anyone I definitely do not want to get in an argument with, it's Joe, because not only is he super smart and passionate, he can also he's black belt in jiu-jitsu. So you're screwed regardless of how big you are.
Yeah, and he's a big dude too. Like he's not tall, but he's like in some shape.
I mean, yeah, man. I've seen him do stand up here in Ohio. I saw him at the theater here. Just like an hour and 20, just killed it. Like the whole time, no lulls. It was amazing. And anyone knows.
That reminds me. When I interviewed Butch Davis, who of course at the last minute, I mean, he talked to all these guys who were gonna go into the draft as like juniors and seniors. He talked all these guys into staying. He's like, we came so close. Let's stick around. Let's finish what we started after this 2000 season. And then like 2 weeks later, he's going to the Browns, right? He gets an opportunity to coach, in the NFL, and he's taken off. And a lot of the players took that really, really hard and really personally. And when I interviewed him for the first time, like he was very, apologetic about it, and he talked about how much regret he had. And I was like, of course you regret it, dude. what kind of schmuck would leave Miami to go to Cleveland? I mean, seriously, like what kind of who
The
would
great
who
state
the,
of Ohio, Joe?
who the hell
Billy?
would do that? By the way, it turns out that like there is an incredible like slate of Ohioans who have come to Miami, like Julia Tuttle, who was like an early pioneer of Miami. We have a causeway named after her. Bernie Kosar.
Yes.
Brian Hartline.
Hartline, yeah. Hartline's playing, and Hartline's in Cleveland now. Do you know that?
I know. I mean, I always offer to work at his bodega, his convenience store. You know, he's got that drive-through.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Smart Stop.
He's the best. Yeah, yeah. He lives in Columbus too. So when he's not, when he wasn't in Miami, now he's in Cleveland. Yeah, you're right, man. You got a lot of great Ohio people. They go down there and then they come back up once they see what it's like down there, huh? No, Miami's awesome. The problem is, I couldn't go outside for like 6 months out of the year. If I walk from my front door to my car in the driveway, I'm sweated fully through all my clothes. So I'm too big of a girl to even live there.
All right, because winter is so lovely in Cleveland.
At least I'm not doing 7 loads of laundry a day and making outfit changes because I'm sweating my balls off everywhere I go. I just can't handle that heat, man. I'm too soft for that. So I'm in Ohio. I love it. I love it here, man. I'm like an Ohio homer, like you're a Miami, Florida homer.
That's absolutely true.
Which is okay. You can be. I think it's good to take pride in if you enjoy where you're from, what you're at, whatever. It's great. And now I'm lucky enough to be in Cincinnati now with the Bengals. So yeah, I'm even double excited for that. So
congratulations and welcome home.
Thanks, man. First off, I don't know how you feel about the Dolphins, but Joe Philbin, their coach, he was in Green Bay. He's the man. Regardless of how you feel about the team, Joe is just a great human, actually.
Dude, my life is like the Hootie lyrics. You know, I mean, I'm such a baby. Even the Dolphins.
Hold my hand.
No.
Oh.
I'm such a baby. Even the Dolphins make me cry. Yeah. I mean, like I watched the Miami Dolphins, I think, scrape years off the end of my father and grandfather's lives growing up. I mean, you realize I was not born yet the last time they won a Super Bowl. Like I was not on the earth yet. You weren't born yet when the last time that they won a Super Bowl. And man, it is tough. It is brutal being a Miami Dolphins fan. I mean, you're always rooting for the home team, but like, dude, it's like it's exhausting. You know, it's
tough.
It really
it's
is
tough down there. Like, why don't you get some of your buddies and take them to the game? Why don't they start selling that place out? That's the problem. They got like. There's too much to do down there, man. Even for the college guys. It's like they can't sell the place out because you guys have so many activities to do and the beaches to go to and all these hotels that were built by the cocaine money that you documented so well. They just have all these awesome things to do. Like, whatever, we'll figure it out. I'll watch the replay tomorrow.
Well, and the weather's beautiful, of course, like all the time.
Like December, January, February, the weather's beautiful.
Everything, yeah. But I think the truth of the matter is I think a lot of these sports venues are going to wind up being just like glorified TV studios. I mean, because that's how most people experience these games. And the truth of the matter is that like in Miami particularly, it's kind of a pain in the ass to go to the games and it's really expensive and you got the best seat in the house. I mean, the live experience, the quality has been going down while the price is going up, but watching at home, the price is going down and the quality is going up. So it's the inverse relationship. So you got the best seat in the house in your boxers, you know, to watch a game. You get the replays. You get to sit on social media, you know, and engage during a game.
Which you are awesome at, by the way. You talk about getting trolled. You're the best.
Dude.
I love when you respond to people, by the way. I'm just telling you, Billy. It's awesome. It seems like I just would like to see your face sometimes when you're tweeting back at people.
Well, like Twitter's not a monologue; it's a conversation. So the idea is to engage in like I love the love, but I love the hate twice as much. I mean, I think that's when you know you're doing something right.
That's a good attitude to have. You're right. You're not. I remember telling somebody, I was like, if there's not a certain amount of people that hate what you're doing or hating on you, like then you're not doing anything creative. That's for sure.
You're not doing it right anyway. I mean,
yeah, it's like, who cares? Like, it's like if I feel indifferent about a person or about something, like that's the worst you could ever feel towards anything. I think at least have some kind of feeling one way or the other, good or bad. And
mediocrity sucks.
Yeah, exactly. That's very true. I mean,
yeah,
man. So you're great on there, though. So what's your Twitter name? We'll put it at the bottom. But what is it?
It's at Billy Corben, Corben, not the Smashing Pumpkins guy. I've got more hair. He's got more talent. That's how you can tell us.
Just different genres of talent. Really.
Thank you. Well, I always say about this about reviews. Like I think anybody who says they don't read their own reviews, I think they're full of shit. Not only do I read all my reviews, I read the bad ones twice, because I think that not only are they more fun, but like if they're well written, then there's more to get out of it than that. There's ways to kind of understand other perspectives and to get better at what you do. Not that I would ever change what I do based on just some sort of critic's opinion, but I think it's helpful to understand that there are different points of view. There are people who come from different life experiences and they just see the world and see art and see stories differently. And it's good to know about those perspectives.
That's a great attitude to have, I think, especially when you're doing something like you're doing that is completely subjective. Basically, if someone likes it or not, it's one. Yeah, it's like any feature movie that I think. I'm just trying to give an example of a movie that I love that not everybody loves. I don't know. Like, I thought Pineapple Express was hilarious. I thought that was really funny. I thought I'll use The Interview. Did you watch The Interview?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Okay, so The Interview. A lot of people are like, I don't know. Like, I loved it. I'm sorry. I thought James Franco was hilarious, but then I hear a lot of people tell me it's terrible and they don't like it, and blah blah, and the acting. I'm like, who cares? Okay, well, they're entitled to that, but movie making is so like subjective from person to person. So if someone like hates on something that you do, they can't. I don't know. Are you fueled by that? Like, I don't think anyone. I just don't. It's so weird. It's it's like art. You can't judge art, really.
Well, I'm fueled by it in so much that at least they watched it. And
yeah.
And we do it for an audience. We don't do it just for self gratification. I'm not that kind of artiste. Like, I do it because I hope people will see it. They'll argue about it. They'll like it. They'll hate it. At least it makes them feel something passionately one way or another. I'm very grateful for everybody who watches our stuff, especially Dogfight, because we self-distributed it because we couldn't find a distributor. And I think it's some of our best work. And that's why we put it out there for $5 so that everybody can experience it. But on the audience tip, I want to say this because you were calling out Miami fans for lack of attendance. And
no, I wasn't. I was just asking them that they should go to the games down there and support the squad, because I understand there's a lot more going on in a place like Miami than, say, Cleveland, like outdoor activities to go be a part of year round.
Well, I have to say, I think there's like there's not such a thing. This like bad fan, good fan thing. Like I don't really believe in that. I think it's a bit of a fallacy, like the true fan thing, because like if you're going to a restaurant, let's say you go to a restaurant, right? A local restaurant owned by a local person, and you love it and it's great. You go there 2-3 times a week sometimes, and you love it. The service is good. The food is amazing. And then it starts to slide, right? Mm-hmm. Service is not as good. The food isn't as good as it used to be. The prices are higher now. You're like, you know what? Parking's a bitch. Now there's like valet parking. You have to pay for it. It's expensive. You got to wait for your car. And you're like, this whole experience has gone downhill. And here's a local businessman. Everybody are like the first people to go on to Yelp and try to destroy some local guy's business because they had a shitty $50 or $100 meal or whatever, and like, this place sucks and it used to be so great, and screw this place, it's over. And it's like, you're not a real fan. You're not a real fan of the Miami restaurant. You're not a real fan of the Cincinnati restaurant. You're trying to put this poor small business man out of business by talking shit. This is the real fan thing. What is a football team? It's the toy of a billionaire. Okay, it's the hobby of some multi-billionaire, okay, who doesn't really give a shit about you. He gives a he's got his business, he's got guys that come and go. I mean, it's not the Dolphins don't even have the same logo, let alone the same team they had, just a few years ago. So what is your affinity to in a real fan? Is your affinity to the fact that it's the only NFL franchise in your town because a cartel of 34 owners and Roger Goodell decided that they're going to bestow that on? I mean, where is the real fan idea? If there's a good product that you want to support and spend your hard-earned money on, I'm all for that. You could be, but to sort of say like, like communities, and people say, I'm not saying you said it, but people say it all the time. They don't have real fans. What's a real fan? Put on a good show, offer a superior product to my entertainment options and a better experience, and maybe I'll partake in it. But I don't get that whole idea. It's like they said, oh, I'm gonna go support the team. Support what team? A bunch of millionaires and billionaires? Like what do they need my money? The local restaurateur who I gave a shit review on Yelp and tried to shut him down. He needs my support. He's the support the be a real fan of that restaurateur of that. But I just don't get this idea that we need to be blindly religiously faithful to what? To the name of a team, which, by the way, if they could get a better deal in Vegas, they'd move the fucking squad to Vegas, man. What are they so loyal and faithful to us sport? They're not. Like, I don't know. This is an issue that I've thought a lot about here, because we spend a lot of money in Miami on professional sports stadiums.
Oh, I meant to ask you about the baseball stadium.
Oh, dude.
Debacle down there, man.
Oh, the Marlins.
How do they pay the one dude like $300 and some million now? Where did that come from?
Dude, when we were we did the U Part 2, in the epilogue, at the end, we're talking about like Miami and the hustles, and the University of Miami has deep connections to not one, not two, but 3 different Ponzi schemers, and and that's just, they're guilty by geography, because if you're in Miami, there's going to be some sketchy people, because as long as the checks are clearing and the champagne is flowing, nobody gives a shit about where the money's coming from. Like, it's not like New England where it's like it's old money and you have a last name or a legacy. Everybody's nouveau riche in Miami, so no one gives a shit. It's all like Great Gatsby's everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, it's all so you have no idea where the money comes from. So like Nevin Shapiro is like one of those guys, and so like in the epilogue we talk about the Marlins scheme, the Marlins Park scheme, and I tweeted a split screen of Marlins owner Jeff Loria and Ponzi schemer Nevin Shapiro in kind of similar poses, and I was like, Nevin Shapiro was accused of being involved in an $800 million Ponzi scheme. Jeff Loria's a Marlins Park will cost Miami-Dade taxpayers $2.5 billion over 40 years. So I asked, who's the bigger hustler in this equation?
I think that's another documentary for you to do. I don't know, though. That's going to be tough, though. You got to live down there. You might get a little bit of the people are probably on your side, to tell you the truth, but the big-time money guys won't be.
Dude, have you seen my Twitter feed?
Yes. That's what I was going to ask you. I'm going to have you back on here, and we'll talk about that, because that was the thing. I've watched the whole thing on I think Real Sports did something on that, and their whole situation when they got the funding, built a crazy park, and then traded the whole team away, basically, and just dumped the roster.
Dude, the day they got the deal, so forget breaking ground, or the day they did the deal, the value of the team like nearly tripled. Just from doing the stadium deal.
Just because of the stadium deal?
Tripled the value of the team. I mean, it's incredible. I don't think there's ever been a professional sports team in America that's sold for less than the owner purchased it for. I think there might have been one NHL team that was in like a bankruptcy situation that might have sold for less. But I mean, look at the Clippers, for crying out loud. People thought, oh, the value is this, the value is $500 million. What did it sell for, like $2 billion? I
think $2 billion, yeah.
The value of something is as much as someone is willing to pay for it. And when you've got a finite number of these assets, these commodities, they become the toys of billionaires. So they're status symbols. It's like, not only do I own a team, it's like, but I paid a preposterous amount of money for it. It's a toy. It's a diamond ring. It's like, it's something that you show off.
Well, yeah, because almost all the owners didn't make their money from the team. They made money elsewhere, and you're like, let's buy the Mavs. Like Mark Cuban. Mark Cuban seems to be a great owner that wants to win, though. I like that. Yeah. I love his craziness. He seems like he'll do anything to make the culture great and bring in some great players. But who knows? I'm not on the inside there, but I love watching him from the outside. But yeah, it's like me going on. It's equivalent to me going on Amazon and being like, I need a new solar battery charger for my iPhone. That's like them buying these teams, like just scrolling through. Probably, yeah, I don't know. And the reason I said it is because I just did buy a solar battery charger for my iPhone in case the zombie apocalypse comes. I'm always ready. I got my Flint too. I got all kind of stuff. So
dude, you can only use that in Ohio like 3 or 4 months out of the year. A solar, that involves the sun, right? You understand that?
This isn't Canada, Billy. We have lots of. It was 70 today in Ohio.
Yeah, I'm sure it was like a beautiful day in Poland.
I can't even respond. I like it. I got my brother-in-law lives in Fort Lauderdale, so Florida's a good spot, Billy. I will not stoop down to your level. Florida's a great state. You have great people there. You have great people there, age 70 and above. I'm sure it's fun for you. I'm sure it's fun for you. What is it called? What, Death's waiting room or whatever it's called?
Yeah, God's
waiting room. My bad.
Yeah. In the 70s, dude, Miami Beach, by the mid 70s, Miami Beach was the only city, I think, certainly in America, if not the world, where more people died every year than were born.
God.
It's a true story. That's how old. And that was like Ocean Drive and Scarface. That was exactly what that looked like. Scarface was almost a documentary, to tell you the truth, So
that's what you're gonna have. Well, you're gonna do it opposite. You're gonna stay there. You're gonna make 150 more films, and then when you get old, you're gonna move out of there. You don't want to be around those old people. You want to move. You want to get around. You want to be around the younger people. You're gonna move somewhere else. Keep yourself young.
No, I'll move to Palm Beach. That's where we move
there
further.
You go.
Yeah, but you know what they say in Florida? The further north you go, the further south you are, and that's because Florida is the South, in America. But the truth of the matter is that like Miami, the best thing I can describe about like South Florida is like Georgia and Atlanta. You know what I mean? Like that's what South Florida is to Florida, what Atlanta is to Georgia. It's like this kind of like, melting pot sort of metropolis, but in the midst of like an otherwise very red state. So it's a crazy place. They even talked about, only partially in jest. I guess there's truth in sarcasm, but talked about like the South, like South Florida, seceding from Florida, like becoming two separate states. There'd be a northern Florida and a southern Florida, which is actually a pretty great idea. But for the fact that like all the money that runs the state is generated by the tourist money in South Florida, so they could never Tallahassee. We'd have to go to war. I'd have to have like a Florida Civil War before they'd ever allow that to happen.
I'll be there. I'll be watching. If they are, man. I always say I think California should split into North California and South California. It's such a different world, and the guys are different too.
It's kind of like Florida, though. It's like eventually all of us in South Florida are going to be underwater anyway. There's only going to be in Northern Florida. It's kind of the same. California could do an East and West California, but eventually that whole Western sea, the Pacific is going to come all the way to Nevada, probably like eventually.
It's true, especially as after all the Fukushima waters finally get over here from the reactor.
Earthquakes and Godzilla, and it's gonna just be mayhem and dude, I could talk to you forever.
Yeah, I know you got to roll, man. I know. I'm sorry.
That's all good.
You get going. I love it. So Billy Corben, I appreciate you, man. Dogfight. I'll say it. CocaineCowboys.com to check it out. You'll find it $5 online. Beautiful. Streamed it right to my iPad. Billy Corben. I see you. He's doing the U for any of the audio listeners. Maybe we'll cut that out. I respect it. My longtime linebacker coach, Winston Moss, part of the U. Love it. He's a great guy. But, Billy, thank you, man. You're awesome. You're entertaining. We'll have you on here again for sure. Keep doing your art, man. It's great. I'm a monster fan of everything you do.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining in. Please visit thehawkcast.com, where you can discover the next guest, get a little more information about why this exists, watch past episodes, or link over to iTunes. And tell some friends too, so we can all hear more great stories together.